There is a specific sound a 5-year-old makes when his heart breaks in public. It isn't a scream. It isn't even a sob. It's smaller than that. It's a little hitch of breath, like a hiccup that got lost on the way out. And then a long, confused silence while he looks up at the adults in the room and waits for one of them, any of them, to say that what just happened was wrong. That night, at a table of 9 people who shared my blood, not one of them said it. My sister had my son's dinner in her hands, his first real steak, the one he'd been talking about for 2 weeks straight. She held that plate at chest height like a trophy she'd won, looked down at a child who barely came up to her hip, and said the 11 words that ended my family forever. "Sweetie, premium meals are for winners. Your mommy isn't one." I didn't yell. I didn't flip the table. I didn't give them the scene they were all leaning forward in their chairs, hungry to watch. I smiled. I wiped my son's face with a napkin. I picked up my coat. And by 8 o'clock the next morning, my sister's entire life was on fire, and she still didn't know who was holding the match. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Claire. I'm 34 years old, and I have spent every single one of those years being the other daughter. In the Whitmore house, there were 2 children and exactly 1 spotlight. My sister Vanessa was born under it. I was born holding the extension cord. Vanessa was the beautiful one. Vanessa was the interesting one. When she got a C in chemistry, my father called the teacher a communist. When I got a scholarship, my mother said, "Well, of course you did, honey. You don't have much of a social life to distract you. 34 years of that. You'd think you'd get numb. You don't. You just get quiet." I got married at 26 to a man named Daniel who thought I hung the moon. 2 years later, we had Eli. 10 months after that, a driver ran a red light on Fulton Avenue at 40 miles an hour, and I became a widow in a hospital hallway with formula stains on my shirt. My mother's first words to me at the funeral were, "Try not to make this about you today, Claire. Your sister's taking it very hard." I have never forgotten that sentence. I have never let myself forget it. So I did what scapegoats do. I disappeared into work. I raised my son alone in a 2-bedroom rental with a radiator that clanged like a hammer on pipes every winter night. I drove a 14-year-old sedan with a passenger door that didn't match. I wore the same gray wool coat to every family event for 4 years. And my family drew their conclusions. Poor Claire, struggling Claire, Claire who does something with spreadsheets. They never asked. Not once in 4 years did a single person at that table ask me what I actually did for a living. My mother once told her book club I was a part-time bookkeeper who cleans offices at night to make ends meet. I never corrected her. Remember that. That detail matters more than anything else I'm going to tell you. The dinner was my father's 65th birthday. Ambrose and Vine, downtown. White tablecloths, waiters in vests, a wine list thicker than a phone book. Vanessa booked it because Vanessa always booked it, and my father always paid for it while pretending he hadn't. I almost didn't go. Eli was the reason I did. He'd found out we were going to a fancy restaurant with real napkins, and something in that little boy just lit up. He'd never been to a place like that. He picked out his own outfit, a navy clip-on tie he wore to Daniel's cousin's wedding, and a white shirt I'd ironed twice because he kept finding wrinkles I couldn't see. In the car he practiced. I swear to God he practiced. "Mama, do I say please may I, or just please?" "Either one, baby. I'm gonna say please may I. It's more polite." He was 5 years old and he was rehearsing how to be worthy of a room. We got there 10 minutes early. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes late in a car that cost more than my annual rent, wearing sunglasses at 7 in the evening, with her husband Grant trailing behind her carrying her bag like a paid assistant. She looked at Eli. She looked at his clip-on tie. And she said, loud enough for 2 tables over, "Oh my God, he's dressed up. That is so precious. Did you get that from the church bin or?" Everyone laughed. My mother laughed. My father laughed. Eli's hand found mine under the table and squeezed. I squeezed back, once. Here's the part that still keeps me up at night. When the waiter came around, my father, feeling generous, feeling seen, waved his hand at the table and announced that everyone should order the dry-aged ribeye, the house specialty, $94 a plate. And then he turned to me and added, with that little smile he does, "Claire, you two can split something. Don't feel obligated. Don't feel obligated." I ordered the ribeye anyway, for my son, because he'd asked the waiter, with a please may I, exactly like he practiced, whether the steak came with a little swirly butter on top. The waiter, God bless that man, crouched down to Eli's eye level and said, "It does, sir, and I'll ask the kitchen for extra." Eli looked at me like he'd just been knighted. That plate came out 40 minutes later. It was enormous, steam coming off it, that little medallion of herb butter melting down the side. The waiter set it in front of my son. Eli sat up so straight his back left the chair. He picked up his fork with both hands, and he turned to me and whispered, "Mama, is this really all mine?" "It's all yours, baby." He didn't even get one bite. Vanessa stood up. She walked around the table, 5 steps. I counted them. I still count them. Reached over my son's shoulder and lifted his plate straight up into the air. The fork clattered onto the tablecloth. "Vanessa," I said, just her name, very quietly. She didn't even look at me. She was looking at him. "Aunt Vanessa," Eli said. His voice went high at the end. That's mine. The man brought it for me." And my sister, 38 years old, a grown woman, a woman with a walk-in closet the size of my kitchen, smiled down at a 5-year-old boy in a clip-on tie and said, "Sweetie, premium meals are for winners. Your mommy isn't one. You'll get one when you earn it." Then she set that plate down at her own seat and picked up her knife. I want you to understand what happened in the next 8 seconds, because it's the reason for everything that came after. I looked at my mother. My mother examined her wine glass. I looked at my father. My father said, and I will carry this sentence to my grave, "Claire, don't start. It's my birthday." My son's chin was shaking. He was doing that thing kids do where they try to hold it in, and their whole face just quietly comes apart. One tear went down, then another. And my mother leaned over, put her hand on Eli's shoulder, and said gently, kindly, in the voice she uses at church, "Sweetheart, if you're going to cry, why don't you go wait in the car? We don't want to ruin Grandpa's evening. Wait in the car." They told my 5-year-old to go sit alone in the dark parking garage, because his grief over a stolen dinner was an inconvenience. Here's what I did not do. I did not scream. I did not throw a glass. I did not tell my sister the 16 things I had been swallowing for 34 years. I did not give my father the tantrum he'd already decided I was going to have, the one he'd tell the family about at Christmas. You know how Claire gets, because rage that leaks out the mouth is rage that never reaches the hands. I stood up. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. I crouched down next to my son's chair, and I turned him toward me so his back was to all of them. "Eli, look at me, baby. Are you looking?" He nodded, chin trembling. "You didn't do anything wrong. Not one thing. You were perfect tonight." But she said, I know what she said. I zipped his coat up to his throat. "She's wrong, and one day soon you're going to understand exactly how wrong. Do you trust me?" "Yes, Mama." "Then let's go get pancakes." I stood up. I put on my gray wool coat. I picked up my son, put his head on my shoulder, and turned toward the door. Nobody stopped us. Nobody stood up. But Vanessa, mouthful of my son's steak, called out across the dining room, "Oh, don't be dramatic, Claire. Some people are just built to sit at the kids' table forever." I stopped. I turned around, and I smiled at her. "You're right, Vanessa. Enjoy it. Really, enjoy every bite." And then I walked out into the November air with my child in my arms, and I did not look back once. Eli fell asleep in the back seat before we left the parking garage. Cheeks still wet, clip-on tie crooked, fingers still curled around a dinner roll he'd taken from the bread basket, the only thing he got to keep. I sat in the driver's seat in the dark for a long time, listening to the rain on the roof, my hands at 10 and 2 on a steering wheel I wasn't turning. And then something inside me went very, very still. They thought I was a bookkeeper. They thought I cleaned offices at night. They had spent 4 years never once asking me a single question about my life, because to them, my life wasn't a thing worth asking about. That ignorance was about to cost them everything. I picked up my phone. I scrolled past every family contact without stopping. I found the number I hadn't called after hours in 3 years, and I pressed it. 2 rings. "Miss Whitmore? It's 11 at night. Is everything all right?" I watched my son sleeping in the rearview mirror. "Marcus, Wake up the legal team and pull the Ambrose file, all of it. The Hale account too. A pause on the line, papers moving. Ma'am, are you sure? Once we move on this, there's no walking it back. Clear my morning. For when? 8 a.m. There's something I never told my family. Not because I was hiding it exactly. I just stopped offering it. Somewhere around year 2, when I realized that nobody at that table had ever once asked. 11 years ago, I took a settlement check from the accident that killed my husband, and I did something my father would have called reckless. I didn't put it in a savings account. I bought a failing strip of commercial property on the east side of the river, 3 vacant storefronts and a parking lot that flooded every spring. Everyone told me it was worthless. It was worthless. That was the point. Worthless things are cheap, and cheap things can be fixed by someone with nothing left to lose and a baby who needs a reason to exist. I fixed it. Then I bought the block behind it. Then the one behind that. Today that company is called Hale Whitmore Holdings. It manages a little over $400 million in commercial and residential real estate across 3 states. My name isn't on the building. It isn't on the website. There's a managing director named Marcus Reyes who does the handshaking, the photographs, the ribbon cuttings. I'm the woman in the gray wool coat who drives a 14-year-old sedan, because I liked the quiet, and because I learned young that people show you exactly who they are when they think you have nothing to give them. My family showed me. For 4 years, they showed me every single time. Now here's the part that matters. In 2019, my parents refinanced their house. They were underwater. My father had made a series of confident, stupid decisions with a man he met at a golf club, and the bank was done being patient. A private holding company bought the note and restructured it at a rate so generous my father bragged about it for a year. You've just got to know how to talk to these people, Claire. He was talking to me. He has been paying me every month for 6 years. And in 2022, my brother-in-law Grant needed a bridge loan to keep Meridian Logistics alive. $800,000 secured against his equity with a change of control clause and a covenant package that his lawyer told him not to sign. He signed it. He signed it because a quiet investment fund out of Delaware believed in him. And Vanessa spent the next 3 years telling the family that her husband was self-made. Danada, 8 to 4 a.m. I didn't sleep. I made Eli pancakes with the little chocolate chip face the way he likes, and I drove him to kindergarten, and he asked me if Aunt Vanessa was going to be at Christmas. I told him the truth. No, baby, I don't think she is. Then I drove downtown, took the elevator to the 14th floor, and walked into a conference room where 6 attorneys and my managing director had already been working for 9 hours. Marcus stood up. He'd known me for 8 years. He'd never seen my face like that. Miss Whitmore. We have 3 options, ranging from, we're not doing options today, Marcus, sit down. Here's what happened over the next 48 hours, every step of it lawful, every step of it documented. Every step of it something they had signed, initialed, and agreed to, back when they thought I was a bookkeeper. 8:41 a.m., Meridian Logistics received a formal notice of covenant breach. Grant had been in violation of his debt service coverage ratio for 2 consecutive quarters. He knew it. He'd been quietly praying nobody would run the numbers. We ran the numbers. The bridge facility was frozen, effective immediately, and the full balance was called due in 30 days. 9:15 a.m., Meridian's operating line of credit, which we backstopped, was withdrawn. Payroll for 206 employees was due Friday. Now, I want to be very clear about something, because this is the only part of this story where I felt anything close to guilt. Those 206 people did nothing to my son, so before I made a single call, I'd already instructed Marcus to prepare a receivership package. We took operational control. Payroll ran on time, funded by us. Every warehouse worker, every dispatcher, every dockhand kept their job. The only position eliminated in the restructuring was Chief Executive Officer. Grant found out he'd been removed from his own company at 11:20 on a Tuesday morning when his keycard stopped working in the parking garage. 10:07 a.m., a courier delivered a certified letter to 41 Bellwood Lane, my parents' house. The house with the good china, and the birthday dinners, and the room where my mother once told me not to make my husband's funeral about me. Default notice. 6 years of a mortgage my father had never actually read. containing an acceleration clause triggered by the second lien he'd taken out in secret last spring, the one he'd used to buy Vanessa's car. 60 days to cure, $90,000 they did not have. 2:30 p.m. The Meridian corporate accounts froze. Vanessa's black card declined at a salon on Ashford, in front of 4 women she'd been performing for since high school. That's the one that got her. Not the company, not the house, the card. The calls started that afternoon. 7 from my mother, 11 from Vanessa, 3 from my father, who has never once called me first in my entire adult life. I didn't answer a single one. Then the texts came, and you could watch a family's entire personality collapse in real time. 2:44 p.m. Claire, honey, call me when you can. 4:19 p.m. Something is happening with Grant's business. Your father is beside himself. 6:52 p.m. I know we had words at dinner. Family is family. 9:30 p.m. Claire, answer your phone. This is serious. Some Delaware company owns our house. 11:58 p.m. You always were the selfish one. I hope you're happy sitting there doing nothing while your family drowns. Doing nothing. Right. And then, at 1:14 in the morning, from Vanessa. Grant found the fund, Hale Whitmore Holdings. They said the owner will take a meeting Thursday. We're going. Mom says you should come. You're good with paperwork. I stared at that message in the dark of my kitchen for a full minute. You're good with paperwork? Then I typed back one word. Okay? Thursday, 9 a.m., 14th floor, glass on 3 sides, the whole Gray River laid out below, a table long enough to land a plane on, Marcus at my left, 2 attorneys at my right, and at the far end, 3 empty chairs. I wore the gray wool coat, on purpose. I hung it on the back of my chair where they'd see it. I heard them before I saw them. My father's voice in the corridor, doing the thing he does, loud, jovial, preemptively charming. Beautiful building, beautiful. You can always tell when a place is run properly. Vanessa, low. Just let Grant talk. My mother. Where's Claire? She said she was coming. The doors opened. I want to describe this properly because I've replayed it 10,000 times. My father came in first, hand already extended for a handshake, smile already deployed. He got 3 steps in. His eyes went to the head of the table, and his hand just stopped, midair, like the wire had been cut. Vanessa walked into his back, looked up, and I watched the blood leave my sister's face from the jaw upward. That's how it actually happens. It goes from the bottom of the face to the top, until she was the color of the tablecloth at Ambrose and Vine. Grant said, very quietly, "Oh God." My mother put a hand on the doorframe to stay upright. Nobody spoke for 11 seconds. I counted those 2. Then my father said, "Claire, what are you doing in that chair? Sit down, Dad." "Claire, I asked you, sit down." They sat. I slid 3 folders down the table, 1 each. Everything I'm about to say is in there, with signatures. Nothing I did was illegal. Nothing I did was even unusual. I want you to understand that from the start, because I know that in about 4 minutes, you're going to try to tell yourselves I cheated. I looked at Grant. You breached your covenants in Q2 of last year. You knew. Your CFO knew. You gambled that your investor was too passive to read a spreadsheet. Your investor read every spreadsheet. I looked at my father. You refinanced with a company you never researched, and last spring you took a second lien against a house you don't fully own to buy your daughter a car. That triggered acceleration. That's on page 4. I looked at my mother, and I let it sit for a second. And you told your book club I clean offices at night. 4 years. 4 years, not one of you asked me what I do. Not once. Because a person with nothing is so much easier to seat at the end of the table. Vanessa found her voice. Claire, this is insane. This is over a steak. No, it's over the 8 seconds after the steak. My son asked you for his dinner back. He said please. He was 5 and he was wearing a tie he picked out himself, and he was crying, and every adult in that room had 8 seconds to be a decent human being. Dad, you said don't start, it's my birthday. Mom, you told a crying child to go sit alone in a dark parking garage so he wouldn't spoil the mood. And you, Vanessa, You told a 5-year-old boy that food is for winners and that his mother isn't one. I closed my folder. I heard you, so did he. He asked me in the car if he was poor, 5 years old. You were right about one thing though. Premium meals are for winners. Enjoy the rest of yours. My father tried anger first. It lasted maybe 9 words before it turned into pleading, and the pleading was worse to watch than the anger. My mother cried and asked me to remember that she was still my mother. I told her I remembered everything. That was the whole problem. And Vanessa got down on one knee beside that boardroom table, in front of 2 attorneys and a managing director, and begged. Actually begged. Said she'd apologize to Eli. Said she'd write him a letter. He doesn't need your letter. He needs to never hear your voice again. I pressed the button on the table. Marcus, they're finished. 2 men from building security came in and stood at the doors and said, very politely, "Sir, ma'am, this way please." And I watched my family get escorted out of a room I own, by men I employ, past a wall with my company's name on it that they'd walked by without reading. Here's where things landed. Grant is a mid-level operations manager 2 states away. Meridian is profitable now, under new leadership, and every one of those 206 people still has a job. The house on Bellwood sold at auction. My parents rent a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm told the radiator clangs in the winter. Vanessa's friends found out. Small towns are small. It turns out that when the money stops, the audience leaves, and Vanessa has never in her life known how to exist without one. I paid for none of it, and caused all of it, and I have not lost 1 hour of sleep. Eli is 7 now, 2nd grade. He doesn't remember the restaurant much. Kids are merciful that way, even when adults aren't. But last month, at a diner, he saw a woman counting change for her son's meal and coming up short. And my boy, without saying a word to me, walked over and put his birthday money on the counter. Then he sat back down and said, "Everybody should get to have the good one, right, Mama?" Yeah, baby, everybody should. So here's what I want you to take from this. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is just a person deciding that you are no longer worth the words. And the people who look down on you when you have nothing to give them, they are showing you the truth about themselves, for free, every single time. Believe them. Write it down, and then go build something they can't touch. Because you don't have to be cruel to people who hurt your child. You just have to own the table they're sitting at.